Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com. And a very special thank you to our Patreon subscribers. Hello and welcome to another episode of Found Footage Fridays. Steve again covering for Angel, here with Tom.
Happy Friday, everybody. Good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, so, we are keeping this Paranormal Activity train going. We were discussing Paranormal Activity 2, which came out 1 year after Paranormal Activity. I'll just show our poster here. New setting, new characters, as the poster teases. This came out in 2010, I believe.
Yes. And this is it brilliantly is. Would you call this? It's sort of prequel-ish. Is that an accurate
prequel sequel? Yeah, I don't know if there's an official word. A pre-sequel.
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 Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
It's unclear though at first. It's unclear at first, right? When the movie starts, or did we know when this movie came out? Did everyone know what it was?
We did not know.
Oh,
so this was not necessarily like marketed as a prequel or a sequel. Well, I guess we assumed it would have been a sequel.
Okay.
The idea of like we were going to get more of this story, but there was no hint as far as how or why or what the story itself was.
So, for people who don't know, this features the sister of the main character from the first movie, correct? Steve?
Yeah, so this is Katie's sister, Christy, and her family. So the dynamic here is, so it's Christy with her husband, his daughter from another marriage, and they have a newborn son. So it sort of kind of opens up with them. I don't know if she's pregnant or they are bringing him home.
Bringing home the brand new baby.
Yeah.
And I don't know about everybody else out there, but probably one of the things that I find the scariest in horror, or maybe it's makes me the most uncomfortable, maybe that's how I would describe it, is any horror that involves kids, creepy children, possessed children, just like I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's even before I was a parent. I think this is a genre that always creeps me out. So this takes Paranormal Activity into a new stratosphere, in my opinion. Now, here's a question for you. When Katie shows up in this movie, Katie from the first movie, were you surprised? Did you know she was going to be in this movie?
So I think that's sort of when it clicked. I assumed she would be in this movie, but that was when it clicked for me that it was a prequel.
Okay.
Because I was like, oh, because especially when you see Mika.
Right. Well, that's when you know it's a prequel.
For sure. But the fact that she's like, well, I guess when it's just her, you're assuming that it's either right after the first one and there's some tomfoolery happening here.
Yep.
But then eventually when you see Mika, you realize that it's for sure a prequel.
Her sister, Katie's sister, brings home their brand new baby. She is married, and he has a daughter from another marriage, I think. Right? So they live in this beautiful home. I would go as far as, what was that? What did you say?
The house is gorgeous. Yeah.
I mean, it's a borderline mansion. There's beautiful, gigantic in-ground pool. It's a little different than the setup in the first movie. And the girls is filming a lot of, probably because the baby is growing up. I think that's the main excuse for them filming, although there's some home security stuff going on again in this movie. And they bring the baby home, and pretty quickly they move quickly through the first, I don't know, 9 months of this kid's life, year of this kid's life, something like that.
Yeah, I think by the time we really get into the main timeline of the film, he must be like a year and a half or 2 years old.
Something like that, yeah.
Because they recorded him coming home, there's a little bit, and then it's just sort of time jumps because they discover that their house is supposedly broken into. It's like
Mhm.
completely ransacked, so it gives them an excuse to kind of pull out the camera again.
Yep,
And that's when the dad hires a security company to put in all the
yeah,
stuff. So that sort of gives us
that's
our
right.
skeleton framework of the plot of the film is like
There's
the
always
reason.
gotta there's always gotta be a reason, right? Found footage has to manufacture a reason, otherwise, if they don't do a good job of that, it doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, they pretty quickly get the reason. They have also living with this family is a nanny or an au pair or something like that who's
Mhm.
taking care of the baby, who herself is quite religious, it seems, and is the first person to suggest that there's weird goings on. She is, burning incense all over the place, and um, she's the first one that, yeah, indicates that there's anything to be scared of.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first, I don't know, maybe it's with her because she's sort of going through the kitchen, and I remember her sort of getting
Yeah,
scared. There's like noises, and I think that's our first instance of really seeing something.
yeah. I mean, and then it's great. There's so many characters from the nanny to obviously Katie's sister who has experienced these things growing up. Um, Even there's a dog in this movie, and the
Yeah.
dog is experiencing some of this. Um, some of the s- great use of the dog in this movie is you can't see much of anything on the on the camera or on the shot, but the dog, you could see the dog reacting to something. And some of
Oh yeah.
stuff like that is really, really, really well done in this movie. Um, so I mean, similar. It's a little bit of a similar setup in that, to the first movie, in that you have the father, the husband is skeptical, uh, and without going too far, like, you know, I guess this isn't too much of a spoiler, but they basically fires the nanny for being too over the top with the incense burning
Yeah,
and
they
all
say
that.
like, yeah, it's not good for the baby to burn incense or sage or whatever
Yeah,
she's got going on, and
yeah,
yeah, just similarly, but the daughter and Christy really seem to be, they got a good buddy relationship, the two of them,
yeah.
the stepmother relationship, but they seem to really be listening to each other.
So how do you think this movie compares to the first, in your opinion?
Oh, I really, I think this one has like definitely some better scares in
Yeah.
general. Like it's definitely bigger.
Yep.
Special effects wise, I mean, very, I think on point for sure.
Hmm.
Similar scares in terms of like, I don't want to say it, I don't want to spoil too much, but they do similar
Yeah.
scares, but then they sort of ramp it up a little bit
They
more.
they do ramp it. I mean, this is like a lot of sequels, right? They're playing on the energy and the fandom of the first movie. You see that with many sequels, but I think they did it really well. I think this movie really capitalized on everything that was going on with this movie
Yeah,
at the time. Um, so let's rate it. Let's Want me to go first this time?
you can go first. Yeah, sure.
So, if you can't tell, I actually like this movie a little bit better than the first one.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
it's one of the rare sequels that I personally like better than the original. So I'm gonna rate this movie 8 tapes out of 10.
Wow. Very good. That was what I gave the first one.
Yep.
I will raise you a half. I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10
Wow. Okay.
because I do think it is better than the original.
Yep. Yep.
And I will, when we get into spoilers, I will go into why.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the scares are a little bit better. I think there are. I think that having more characters was really helpful. It The first movie's a little slower,
Hmm.
I think. Um, and just, yeah, add in the creepy kid factor, uh, definitely kind of ramps up some of that. And I don't know, you're getting more of the story from the first. I don't know, it's intriguing. You're learning more about how the first movie comes to be.
Yeah.
So it's really well done.
It's funny you say that the first one is slower than this one because the first one is actually a shorter movie too.
Oh no, it is. It is. Yep.
Yeah. But this one, for being a longer film, moves much quicker because I think there's
Yep.
very defined acts and break points where like the tension really ramps up.
Yep.
Just again, having more variety in characters gives you an opportunity to explore different dynamics, beliefs in what's going on, opinions, and sort of
Yep.
how different people react to it.
I think that's what it is. Like this you see in the first movie, like you don't see much of what's happening, or you don't see what's happening through anyone's eyes, really, other than like Katie and Mika. And Mika doesn't really believe what's going on, so he's not really scared for a lot of the movie. And actually, you don't really see it from Katie's eye because she's not really ever behind the camera. I don't
Yeah.
think in the first movie. So, but in this movie, you have you have the daughter behind the camera who's sort of like a third party. She's not, she is not possessed. And she is it's her, stepmother and her little brother. So who are dealing with a lot of the stuff in this movie. So I don't know. I think that you feel her being scared. You feel her trying to get everyone's attention, and I think it's a little bit different than just Mika walking around with the camera in the first movie.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely different dynamics. It's refreshing too.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
Not just for the franchise, I think just in found footage in general too, the way like the cast of characters sort of rotates,
Yep,
especially as we get into the later act
yep,
of the movie.
yep. Um, so well, I think we can spoil this, right? We're good to go.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
let's hop into spoilers
let's
so we
just
can
do
really
it.
dive into the meat of the movie.
Spoilers. Okay, love that. Uh, yeah. So Dad fires our maid because she's just doing too much with the incense burning, the sage. Um, and you know, there's the baby is there's weird things happening in the baby's room. Some kind of the classic, the mobile spinning,
Hmm.
and um, I don't know, the window. Maybe there's a window that was open. Lights are turning on outside. Uh, small stuff at first.
The
The
pool
pot.
lights,
What was that?
the pool lights going
Oh,
off,
the
and
pool lights going on. They do a thing with the pots over the island in the kitchen.
yeah, the
Um,
pop balls. Yeah,
it tells you what kind of place this was. There's 15 pots hanging from the ceiling over a beautiful island in the
I
middle of
mean,
the
and they've
kitchen.
also got like a pool, hot tub in the back
Oh
with
yeah, yeah.
with a vacuum that's always going.
Oh
That
yeah.
I
So
love the
that's
thing with
another thing. The
the
vacuum, like jumping out of the pool or whatever it is,
yeah.
which they find sort of an explanation for. The Yeah, the dog is clearly freaked out by some things that are happening. Um, the baby, I'm trying to think. No, the baby clearly is seeing things. There's a lot of shots where the person with the camera is talking to the baby, and the baby's clearly looking past
Hmm.
them. I always think that's interesting, like how directors get the babies to cry in these movies, and how they get them to look, where they want them to look. Like I don't know,
Oh,
it's
that's with like
interesting.
toys and all that, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
noises and stuff. With the crying, I guess you just sort of have to wait until because babies are going to
Wait,
cry no matter what.
yeah, I assume they're not like making these babies cry.
I know that'd be something.
um, so yeah, there's just like a lot of little stuff. There's nothing like that really that big happens right off the bat, right?
No, I'm trying to remember what the like sort of the inciting
Well,
situation is.
and then so like then you do have Katie, and then eventually Mika starts showing up, and you realize this happened. This is happening before the events of the first movie, um, and you even get a little bit of Mika showing interest in not only the cameras and all of that
Mhm.
that are being used in the first movie, but that are being used in the second movie, but also um, talking and asking questions about their backstory and their supernatural experiences, the sisters, which obviously leads into what happens in the first movie. Um,
Right, right. Because Christy brings it up to Katie. So I guess
Yeah,
so the pot falls. So Chrissy's starting to get suspicious between the
yeah,
pot falling multiple
that's right.
times. Like what else goes on that she recognizes?
Well, the there's a picture from their house that appears, and it's the same picture I think that ended up being burnt up in the first movie up in the attic.
Yes, they
That's
find the photo of
found in
Katie.
like an album, and the sister's like, "This shouldn't be here. I thought all of this stuff was destroyed in the
Right,
fire." Um, Stuff like that, right?
right. She was
There,
starting to piece all that together.
there's a lot of like people falling asleep on the couch, and something happens.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the something like catches on fire on the stove,
Mm-hmm.
and wakes up half the house when the daughter's out in the hot tub with her boyfriend, and then the dad has to run out and throw whatever it is on fire into the pool. Like um, a lot of little things like that. And then it sort of all builds like the builds to a head where they the father and his wife, they're going to go out for dinner or something, and they leave the daughter alone with
Oh,
to
right.
babysit the baby, which is going to be terrible, and all the bad stuff's going to happen. Um, and she puts him to bed. He's in bed in the bedroom with the dog, and almost immediately somehow she gets like locked outside.
Yeah, there's like a
Um,
bang outside. She goes to investigate, and then the
yeah,
door just slams on her.
door just slams on her, locks her outside. The baby's locked alone inside, and actually while she's locked outside, you see him somehow like levitate out of the bed, and
Ah,
then like run down the hall, and he like there's something with the basement. The whole movie they're like hinting there's something with the basement, right?
yeah.
And you see him like go and basically open the basement door, essentially. Like, I don't know if he's letting something in, letting something out, like you don't know. um and when they come back, he's back he's back in bed. But that was one scene. um and then I forget what happens yeah, so the the sister, Katie's sister, starts really struggling towards the end of the movie, right? She's almost like catatonic.
Well, that's what sort of like when she tries to get Katie in for help, and then Katie's like, "Just don't talk about it,"
Right, right,
which is interesting, right? Because then it kind of harkens back to the first movie when Katie's telling Mika, "Just don't make things happen."
right.
So that's sort of Katie's coping mechanism. It's just like just don't. Which I
Don't go
wonder if
there.
there's like very metaphorical for like trauma, because they do hint at
Oh,
again
yeah.
like childhood stuff, right?
Yep.
Of like Katie's just sort of like brush it under the rug, don't talk about it, it'll go away. Christy's like, no, I mean we need to talk about this. It's really affecting my family, right?
Yep. And then there's something that happens in the middle of the night. I don't know if it's the door opening to the basement or something, but the dog ends up coming out of the bedroom and coming all the way downstairs, and something attacks the dog,
Right.
right?
So this is the
And
big sort of split the family moment, right?
yeah,
Like get the family to split apart.
yeah. And so the dad and his daughter take the dog to the vet. Who knows what's happening? And you don't see what attacked the dog. And then the you know the sister, Katie's sister, and the baby are left at home, and she's basically gone into like complete zombie catatonic state by the time
Yeah.
they get back. Right?
Well, when they're gone with the dog, that's when Christy gets pulled into the basement.
Oh, right. Forgot about that. Yes, she goes down there, and something pulls her out of the baby's room. You're right. I completely forgot that. She goes to check on the baby, and
Mhm.
that is a great, great effect. However, they did that.
It looks
She's
great
like getting pulled down the stairs. It looks real. I'm not sure exactly how they do that.
because it doesn't look very CGI heavy, but I think
Yeah.
maybe being found footage, you're able to sort of hide things through like the way
Yes.
it's shot. Maybe I don't know, but it looks
I
great.
think it's probably a practical effect, but I just can't. I don't know how they did it. They did it really well. It looks like it's a practical effect.
Yeah, so they
Um,
probably got a stunt person and just had them
yeah,
like just
could
pulled.
be, could be, yeah. And so yeah, she gets pulled down there. Yeah, and then by the time they come back, she is back upstairs and just like complete zombie. Um, and eventually they find like scratch marks outside the door. They find bite marks on her legs,
Mm-hmm.
and they've watched the video. Her
Yeah.
father and his daughter watch the video of her getting pulled down the stairs, and like
Well, it's like,
freak
well,
the
Dad
F out.
finally gets it now.
Yes, and so they try to like talk to her, and then I'm kind of forgetting exactly what happens at that point. Somehow the kid and his mother end up in the basement, and the dad's chasing after them. Right.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they get the nanny back.
Right. Right. Yes. Yep.
So like, so he's like, oh, I was wrong for firing you. Like, you knew what was up. So
Yes.
come
Help
help
us,
us.
please. Yeah.
Because also Christy's like going full like guard mode and like will not
Mhm.
let them near the baby.
Right. You can't get in the room. Yep. They can't go near. So that's where I'm sort of like forgetting what happens after the nanny comes, and they somehow between then and
So they pretty much so they plan to pretty much exercise this
yes.
entity out
Oh,
of
right.
her.
Yes.
Another reveal, because this is also important, because Christie's kind of as she's possessed is guarding the baby. When the daughter's doing the Ouija board again, the Ouija board, and I think this might be the same Ouija board from
It
the first
probably
movie.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
I think
With
it
her
is
boyfriend. Yeah.
because it looks like the same sort of like burnt look.
Yeah.
But she's doing the Ouija board with the boyfriend, and it spells out Hunter, which is the baby.
That's right. Yeah.
So we now know that the demon's really after the baby.
Right.
So that's sort of like the extra layer that got added. So anyway, they plan to exorcise the demon.
They
They're
have the
down in the
cross.
basement.
Yeah.
They're doing the cross. They're doing the whole
Mhm.
thing. And then the nanny convinces. No, 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 no. So the nanny convinces him that they have to transfer the demon. So
Yeah.
they get the picture that they found of Katie, and that's actually how it's
Right.
burnt.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the daughter's like, "No, you can't do this. This is my aunt. Like, what are you? This is nuts, you know." And they're like, "No, I have to do it. This is my wife. Whatever."
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so they actually transfer the demon over to Katie, and that's how we get
First
past the
movie. Yeah.
first one.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, there's a really uncomfortable scene where he's like crawling through all the stuff in the basement looking for his son, which is shot with the night vision camera, which is pretty cool looking scene. And presumably successful, right? You think it's successful, and that the demons exercise, or maybe it is exercise onto Katie. And then uh, late at night, end of the movie, you think the movie's like winding down, is over. Dude's resting on his couch, watching a movie. Katie appears looking in dire straits,
Mm-hmm.
and just snaps that dude's neck.
It was like it
Um,
reminded me of how Buffy snaps vampire.
oh, just like
Just that,
yeah, like
yeah.
yeah. Uh, and then upstairs, and then you get a very similar shot to what you saw in the first movie, where instead of Mika getting tossed right at the camera, it's very reminiscent of that. It's the sister getting just flung right at the camera, and then Katie picks up the baby, and
Mm-hmm.
they disappear.
That's it. So that's our sequel part of the movie is
Yeah,
this little epilogue.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's like really strapped in for the mystery at this point, right? Now it's like Hunter and Katie are nowhere to be seen. Like,
mhm,
you know, the daughter wasn't home at the time, so that we know that the daughter's safe
yes. She's the one who comes back. It says at the end the little like notes about what happens to the characters. She comes home and
and finds
finds
them.
them. Yeah, but Hunter's missing. Katie's missing.
Yeah, and the
Right.
mystery continues. But this is what I was saying is like there's a lot of like similar scares to the first one,
Yeah.
but they ramp it up, and I think it's a really cool bookend with the first movie because you get
Yeah.
like the camera toss, or you get the being pulled down the hallway sort of stuff, but
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the same entity, they're going to sort of act in the same way, right? So I
Yes.
don't think it's too much of a repetition in the sense of
Not
just
at
for the
all.
sake of repeating it.
It's just good storytelling too. The way they sort of tie it up there at the end, bring it back to the first movie, but at the same time set you up for the third movie. So I just really, really, really well done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this was fun. And I feel like I've seen everyone in theaters, right? I think after the first one I was sold. I think this was like opening weekend kind of stuff for me for like the next 5, 6 years.
Really, you saw them all.
I
That's
think I
a
saw them all in theaters opening weekend.
wow,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so you were still on board for number three after this. You were super
Yeah. And
excited.
then
Yeah.
and I really like three. From what I mean, I'm excited to rewatch it for this because it's been a minute since I watched it again. But like, yeah, no, I think the first three are probably my favorite of
Okay. Well,
the whole
for
shebang.
people watching at home, next week, next Friday, we'll be covering episode or not episode, Paranormal Activity 3. So
Yeah. So thank you
hope
so
you'll
much
tune
for
in.
checking it out. And yeah, let us know what you thought about the sequel. Did it live up to the first one for you? Yeah, no, I'm excited to keep. I keep calling it the party train. I don't know. I'm excited to keep this going.
Keep it going. Keep it going. We'll see you all next Friday.
See you next Friday. Bye.
Hey fam, Newman here from Movies for Days, your non-pretentious easy access movie chat podcast and weekly deep dive into any film from any genre, from any decade with anybody's guess as to how we chose that movie that week. Proud member of the You Run Podcast Network. Check us out where all great podcasts can be heard. And on Twitter at Movies Days. Movies is spelled regular, Days is spelled with a Z.